Well, welcome everybody to Anxiety Simplified podcast. I am Joanne Williams, and I'm here to really share, or we really are here to share some compelling strategies with you. Some I've used in my 30 years as a licensed mental health professional with my clients with great success that you can use to make your life just a little easier, I hope, with less anxiety simply. And today's strategies are from a very special guest, Darrel Williams, that I'm going to introduce in just a minute, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about what he's doing. But today's podcast is on reducing anxiety transitioning from the military. And this is Veterans Week, I'm going to call it. And this is to honor our military brothers and sisters that have given so much for all of us. So Darrel transitioned out of the military in 2005 and is a 20-year Army veteran. And he recognizes he transitioned out of the military the same things that are currently going on for the military members he's working with. So regardless of who you are and what military service you transition from, we all go through some of the same challenges. So Darrel's goal is really to help others have a better transition and take away the stress that comes with this type of transition with his coaching program and as a career transition coordinator. So welcome, Darrel. I'm really glad to meet you and hear more about this transitioning out of the military. I really didn't know much about this, so I'm really glad to kind of know more and put more of this information out. If we can help the military anyway, let's do it. So
I
welcome.
totally agree. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Joanne. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell us more about what is going on for you about this transition.
So for me, like you said, I was in the Army for about 20 years. And the good thing for me is I was working on my transition about 3 years before I even got out. I've always had a lot of great mentors, and I was just curious about that process early on. So I was taking a lot of good notes. And as I was gathering information, a lot of people were coming to me saying, "Hey, I heard you spoke with so-and-so and just want to know if you had any tips to share." So I just kind of began that process of actually helping others transition before I even got out within those next 3 years, which I thought, okay, this is good, because if I'm helping them, then eventually it's going to come back and help me. So it was just really good to just gather that type of information, have it readily available, because going through a military transition is a very stressful time. I don't care what service you're coming from, because as I try to paint a picture, you're going from that known to the large unknown, right? You've been doing this job for 20, 25, even 30 years, been getting paid every 2 weeks, and you never had to worry about anything. And now all of a sudden, that's all changing. And then on top of that, you may have a family that is depending on you. You have to figure out, are we going to move closer to home, right? Or are we going to stay where we are? So all of these things add to the stress that goes with the military transition mission, as I call it.
Transition mission. Yeah, I hear these stressors. You know, there's some of the major stressors in life. Move, changing jobs. And so these are going on, but it can be for somebody like you that was in for 20 years. So that has been a pretty steady way of life for a paycheck. You may have moved around a lot, but so how do you help other veterans to figure out that system of how do you get a job or how do you get back into the labor force? Or
So one of the first thing I do is I always ask every veteran, right, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because a lot of times in the military, you pick a particular profession, right, or job that you've been doing for those years, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stick with that job. I was speaking with a person today, and they were in the intel arena, but they really had a heart for helping people. They wanted to do something through human resources. So once I identified that passion, then I tried to, share some strategies and possible things that they can do to kind of connect the dots, right? So One of the biggest things I'm on always is finding a mentor that's already walked the path that you have walked. Because military transition is different from a civilian retirement. Most of the time, you've been doing it for years, you got money saved up, you kind of at the end of your career, and that's it. But in the military, think about it. You have people that's retiring at 38, 39, 40, 44 years old. They still have a good 20 something years left,
Mhm.
right, to provide for their family and add to the workforce. So it's really important for them to find out what they want to do, see if we can identify some mentors, and then third, tie them to resources that are out there for free that can
Mm.
help these veterans with whatever it is they need, whether it's establishing a resume, job interview tips, um, connecting on LinkedIn and creating that great profile, because a lot of things that we take for granted, right? Even the clothes we wear, think about it. These
Mm.
military members have been wearing the same clothes for 20 something years. And now some of them have to go out and buy business attire, right? To start this new journey.
Yeah, they need a stylist that know how to put clothes together if you don't ever have to think about that. That's even quite something to imagine. If you have worn a uniform, you don't even have to think about what to wear in the morning. You don't have to put an outfit together. Oh my goodness. And as women, I mean, we do the whole thing with jewelry and all
Yes,
that stuff. So
sure.
that's even maybe out of somebody's comfort zone for sure. So that probably creates anxiety or uncertainty.
It definitely can. But one thing I have to give the military services credit for, they have a lot of good transition assistant programs that every military member has to go through, right? So nobody has to get out and look for this on their own.
Oh, that's good.
The things that I'm giving them are basically additional resources. And one of those resources that address what you just said is, I know in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, there is a young lady that does a Dress for Success session
Mm.
during that 1 week period. And I love that because she challenges them and says, hey, bring your favorite suit, right? If you don't have one, get one because they're going to need one. And they come, and during the class, which I think is so neat, she talks about, the types of suits that you might want to wear on the interview, the black or the blue. And I mean, basic things that we take for granted, but for a lot of our military members, I mean, they may have dressed up for parties and things on the weekends, but to
Mhm.
have a whole wardrobe, right, moving forward 5 days a week, like I said, that can be a little daunting.
Yeah, you make me think though, they go in Men's Warehouse or whatever. There's a lot of helpful people there too.
They
I
are.
must say, I mean, they'll find
They
the right
are.
tie and they'll help too.
Absolutely
So,
will.
so there are other ways, but it's just you never think about. You have to even plan that much about what you're going to wear. So, something else you said, Darrell, that I was shocked by. That you said 200,000 military people transition out of the
Every
military
year.
every year. That just floors me.
Mhm. Exactly. So again, that's something that we don't even think about that number
Numbers.
because it's just one of those that happens every year. And those that are in what I call special assignments sometimes have an advantage because if you're in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, there's a greater opportunity of you working next to civilians, working in an environment where you see how people are dressing all the time. But
Mm.
if you're in those traditional military organizations where if you're on the Navy and you've been serving on a ship for the last 10 years, or you're on an Air Force base or an Army post for the last 8 or 12 years, you have not seen or come into interaction with civilians. So that piece does take a little bit of work as far as, and here's another one, Joanne, the language. In
Mm,
the
yeah.
military, we're used to our own acronyms and our own way of talking, right? Meet me ASAP behind the POB. And in the civilian world, you have to learn that normal, regular language just to communicate.
And I can imagine that could make anxiety in social situations. or in situations that they may not be too comfortable with anyways, because if they're used to having their so-called people around them, they're like,
Hmm.
okay, I can just easily, talk about simple things. They know what I'm talking about. But if they have to stop, it's like almost like a second language. You have to
Exactly.
stop and think, okay, and what am I saying? Are they going to even understand me? So that can create some anxiety in social situations that can just make you look uneasy or even odd, and it not comfortable. And that is really pretty much social anxiety. So is that something that's talked about, or do you notice that's something that people really have to learn some new skills about?
Not as much as learn new skills, but they have to adapt to a new way of doing things. And again, the military does do a really good job of
Okay.
preparing our veterans for that. The good thing about the transition assistance program that all military members have to go through. It's a 1 week program, and the good news is they can go to it as many times as they
Oh,
want. If you're in the Army, you can go to the one that the Air Force does or the Navy does. So I always tell everyone, don't just go to one, go to as many as you
yeah.
can, because you may pick up on some new things, right? Every time you go through it. And it's just never a bad thing to hear good information more than once.
No, and I think we must actually, because there's really only so much I call it brain power, that we
Mhm.
can focus on something at one time and take it in. It's like, yeah, we need to hear things over and over again to get comfortable, to let it soak in and think about some questions, to know, okay, yeah, but, or whatever they need to ask questions about. So that's good. Take some of these over and over again. You
Mhm.
know, Something else you had talked about that I think is important to talk a little bit about, if you have an injury, that this can take even longer process or take more paperwork.
Yes, so a lot of military members throughout their career have what they call the medical records, right? And normally, what should happen is a year out from the day that you retire, you should start what they call your physicals. Because there's times where I may have had nagging injuries that, I've just been dealing with it over the years. And then you get ready to get out and you're like, okay, now I need to really take care of this. So you may, if you are getting out, let's say 1 year out, and you start your medical physical, and you find out, okay, Joanne, this injury that you've had, it's good that you've managed it. However, you need to have rotator cuff surgery. You
Mhm.
need to have XYZ surgery, and you're going to be, no kidding, off your feet for 3 months. If you get that news, Joanne, now you've cut your transition time from 12 months to 9 months. So we try to start a new um, habit within the military transition space of getting people to start moving 2 years out, right? Giving yourself even more time. So if that happens, don't take away from your regular time. And if it doesn't, that's okay too, because you can get a lot done and kind of relax those last 6 months.
Yeah, that's good. Anything that can kind of alleviate some of the anxiety is what I'm hearing. You have to do it early and get prepared and take care of the stuff, so you don't have so much to do maybe after you get out, or before you get out. What do you think is the biggest anxiety, the biggest thing that really creates the hardest kind of obstacle?
I think one of the biggest things that creates an obstacle is you have these great leaders who have been doing this one thing for so long and they were great at it. I mean, they've made rank, right? Um, and then now they have to start over. For some people, just the mindset that something that I was an expert in, yes, it could transition over. However, I have to prove myself all over again. So trying to let military veterans know that, they've been preparing for this all their lives, whether they realize it or not. All right. And then the things that have made them great in the military, just reminding them that those same habits are going to make them great in the private sector, right? You're bringing
Hmm.
discipline, you bring in tenacity, right? You're bringing a whole attitude of teamwork that, no matter what, I know there's a way that we can get this done, and I'm going to continue to figure it out until we get it done. And just reminding them that those patterns and behavior that made them great then will eventually make them great on the outside as well.
That's good. But I can also, I'm going to be the negative Nelly here,
Mhm.
in the sense that I could also see if I'm higher ranked and I'm used to people just doing what I say, you know, also may not go over so well in corporate America or in some teams. And so I would imagine, you know, that could be make you feel really insecure or something. Do you, you know, that's going to be a hard one to address too. If they're higher ranked, it's not something you can go, you know, you kind of got an ego there. Or, you know, you might want to calm that down the way you're speaking to be. I don't know. How do you deal with that?
Joanne, that is an excellent point, and it does happen sometimes, right? So one of the first things I do when I'm coaching a military leader of rank, I always ask them, who are your mentors that have already transitioned that are doing well? And they can always, name about 4 or 5. So one of my first homework assignments that I give them is I need you to go back, interview those 5 leaders, and I need you to answer these questions, right? How did they have to adjust their language? How did they have to adjust their mindset? And how did they have to adjust their teamwork approach?
Mm.
Within those 3 questions, they will always come back and say, well, they said they had to do this, or they had to stop saying this, or they had to do a different approach. And then I asked them, how did they feel when they got those answers? And a lot of them will admit, I think that's going to be really tough for me because that's all I know. But what I tell them is, it's not that it's all you know, it's all you've allowed yourself to know.
Mm.
The good thing about transition is there's a whole side of you that you've never used before.
Mm.
And I tell some people, in a sense, the military may have been a little easy for you, especially as you start progressing in rank, because like you said, you have more people working for you.
Mm.
So now, depending on when you get out, and there are some leaders that they do get more of a lateral type of leadership role. But one thing we tell them and challenge them to do is, hey, let's talk about different scenarios. Let's do some role plays. And it's so funny when we're in those role plays where they would say something on the military side, and then I can show them the same thing, but now here's how we say it on the civilian side. And they're like, got it, that makes sense. So it's a really neat um, opportunity for them to learn on the fly.
That and that would take some practice. I could imagine. How long do you generally work with somebody?
So for me, I do a lot of one-on-ones until they feel comfortable, but I have learned to tap into other resources out there, and I'll make sure I pass these on to you so you can have them in the show notes. But there's 3 really great organizations out there that I point people to. One is Vets to Industry. They do a fabulous job of virtual networking events and, you know, bringing on recruiters to talk to transition members. And this is before they even get out. There's another group called Veterroti. And I love about this group is when you sign up with them, again, they help you create a resume if you don't have one. If you already have one, they'll critique it. They work with you to do interview training and techniques and things of that nature. And then the other thing I love about them is they assign you a mentor from the
Mm.
time that you sign up until the time that you get an offer letter. That
Wow.
is fantastic. And then the other organization is called Fourblock, Fourblock, and they do a combination of both of those organizations. Plus, they do a lot of workshops and training opportunities. So there's many organizations out there, but the key is trying to expose our military members to those organizations.
Well, I wonder also if most military people accept the help. Are they kind of looking and willing, or are they kind of stubborn and think they got it?
It's a little bit of half and half. And then the
Half
ones
and
that are
half.
stubborn and think they got it, once they're humbled, they go back to my phone number and email and say, hey, this is Colonel so-and-so. Remember the conversation we had? I think I'm ready to listen a little
Oh,
bit more now. And it's like, sir, ma'am, it's okay. We've all been there, right? Don't think too much about it. It's all about moving forward. And then the other good thing too is the VA has, again, great resources as well. I was telling a young lady today, have you reached out to the VA? And they automatically think, Joanne, that, well, I'm not close yet. I was waiting until I got closer. I'm like, no, 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 no. Reach out to them while you're 15 months out, while you're 18 months out, because you're going to be exposed to so much good information. Like you said, it gives you time to digest it all and compartmentalize it and say, okay, this part I can do this weekend. This part I'll build up and do it next month. And give them time to really look at those resources that are available.
and I know you said the VA even hire people or they have others. I always think of the VA as just medical, but
Yes,
you were saying that they are really much broader than that.
they are so broad, Joanne. I have to give it to a lot of those um, companies out there that really pour into our veterans, because a lot of them reach out to the VA and say, hey, we want to give back. Hey, we want to do this. So they offer resources. They offer their recruiters, right? They
Oh,
send people within the education industry that says, hey, we want to set up this program where military members who have particular trainings and things that they've done, we're going to set up this system where we're going to flip it and show them this is how they can get college credits for maybe those who haven't finished their degree yet, right? That they can change that training to actual college credits. So now they're even closer to their degree than they thought, or closer to a second degree. And
oh,
all their electives may be taken care of, and they just have to hit, some of those hard courses. And even that is a great tool for our military members, because, like you said, some of them don't know how those things can transition over to the civilian side. So now they don't have to figure it out by themselves. They just sign up for a mentor, sign up for anything through the VA. And you hit a great point there, Joanne. A lot of people look at the VA from medical, but now we have to let them know that, oh no, the VA is also about career
really?
progression. They're about education. And how about certifications? The VA now helps military members before they get out to get certifications in the industry that they would like to move toward. And some of their VA benefits, they've also expanded the education benefits. So now it's not just I can get my degree, but now I can also use my education benefits to get certifications.
That's wonderful because there's it sounds like there's a lot of support
It is.
if they take advantage of it. Something I'm just curious and wonder about, and it's just kind of nosy.
It's okay.
A lot of businesses or corporations that you really don't get much of a pension or benefits anymore. Is the pension that, I don't know, most, I guess, or average, is it livable, or do they have to go and get another job really to support a household?
That is a great question, Joanne. For some people, it is definitely livable. For some people, it is not. And so that will
Okay.
be an additional income, right? Where they definitely have to continue working. Like I said, some of them are 38, 39, and
Right.
the more medical challenge that you have, obviously, the more you can get, and you may not have to work. But for those like myself that, was kind of very fortunate when it comes to that piece, um, the retirement is not enough where you can retire. That's what we say now. It's like, are you retiring or are you retired? And most people say, oh, no, no, I'm just retiring from the military, but I'm still going to work in the private sector or for the government. And another thing I want to make sure I share with you as well is a lot of these organizations are so good, Joanne, that they also have programs for spouses.
Really?
Because think about it, Joanne, you've been traveling with your husband or your wife all these years. So you've never really, unless you had a job as a teacher or, one of those jobs that transition regardless
Mhm.
of where you go, you may also be looking to start something. So now there's organizations to include the VA that they have classes for spouses so they can also start their careers.
Wow, that's really important because I've heard that in general for spouses of military that the women generally
Mhm.
um, lose out on so many years of employment that they don't almost look employable. And it really can be a setback. I mean, tremendous setback for them, to be able to get into a career. So I'm glad if they do help because it's like they're a team. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not just like one, well, there might be a single person, but usually it's not as a
You're
family
right.
being
It is a
dragged
family.
around and all these different places. And they're without them a lot of times. And
That's
so
right.
there's a lot of sacrifice that's really going into this that you know, I've never been personally in the military. And
Mhm.
so I don't really understand it. And I think that's really why I wanted to do this podcast, because I think a lot of us are separated in a great sense from military understanding in life. And I'm really glad we can say these things and I can be a little ignorant about it, because I don't know this stuff, but I've read for women, how difficult this can be. So I'm really glad. Is that something new that the VA is doing, or has that been something that's been there for
I think
women?
it's something that's been there for a
Spouses, I
while,
should say.
but every
Yes.
year they build on it. They build
Ah,
coalitions, which is so great because that's what I always tell people. You don't have to recreate the wheel. Just
yeah,
partner with an organization that's already doing something.
yeah,
And then you ask them, hey, can you add a military spouse component to this? And a lot of times, those organizations are saying, absolutely, we would love to do that. That's our way of giving back.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why I'm so grateful for you for doing this because now anybody, even if you're not in the military, but you know somebody in the military, they can send them to your website or your podcast and say, I heard this great podcast on Joanne Williams' show, and I think you might want to listen to it. Let me send you the link. So I appreciate you diving into this topic.
Well, and I think the other thing I might do, I have a Roku show. It's a streaming show, TV, on TV. And I'm wondering I might just put this up also on that TV show
Good for
for
you.
November, because again, 200,000 transitioning out every year. There's got to be people that are a little lost. I mean, I can't believe that they're not, that this is a big deal. And it's probably a bigger deal than they really understand until they do kind of get out there and start floundering. And that is no time to be not knowing something. You want to come out with confidence. And that's what I really hear you provide. And what is the name of your seminar or your uh what do you call them?
Organization.
Seminars? Yeah, an organization.
Yes. Yeah, basically, it is just Alliance Seminars Coaching, and mine is Military Transition Coaching. I put it all underneath that umbrella just to keep it simple.
Okay.
And again, I work a little bit with other organizations, like I was telling you before. So that's a good thing I was telling young lady today. I said, after you speak with me, you can fire me, throw my number away, because you're going to be in great hands with all these organizations, because that's all they do full time. They just need people, like you said, to point them in that direction. And that's why I love about the VA, because it's mandatory for every military member to go through that VA 1 week transition, right? So that's the good thing about what you just said. You cannot even get your retirement paperwork until you go through this 1 week training, which is a
Mm,
great, great thing. So that
yeah.
means every one of those 200,000 members will get enough to at least get them through the door. But then now, when they come to myself and other organizations, they'll be able to get that cherry on top.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, Darrell, I really am so glad we did this because I do want to honor our military for all they've done and appreciation. And I don't know, it's hard to kind of do enough. I feel like in some ways. So I think this is one way we are kind of giving back. And so
Absolutely.
what would be anything you left out or you really want to say or before we end this?
Sure. The biggest thing I tell any military member, right? Connect with a mentor, right? That is crucial, crucial, crucial. Connect with a mentor. Look at all the resources that the VA provides because they're more than medical, right? And then number three, that's the great thing about the internet now. There's so many military transition resource organizations that are out there. So feel free to, again, just do as much research as you can. And you don't have to just look at one, right? You can go to 5 different locations, 5 different resources, and each of those 5, I guarantee, will provide something that's going to help them take away that anxiety.
That's beautiful. Ah, well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this topic. Again, you don't know what you've done. This is really, really helpful.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad. Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of our listeners for being here. And please support our podcast by rating, reviewing, and subscribing. And just like Darrel said, share this with somebody that you think this might help. That's what I feel like the most important part of doing this is sharing it. If you hear it and go, oh, I'm thinking of my friend, whomever, Joe or Sally, they're getting out. I wonder if they know this stuff. They may not. So please, please share this, because that's what I want us all to do, that we can honor each other by just sharing this. And, the same thing, if anybody is feeling overwhelmed about this or feeling like they do not know what to do, you must reach out. You have VA services, but there's always somebody standing by too. If you ever feel so overwhelmed, you just don't even know what to do, there's 1-800-273-8255 that you can call anytime, 24 hours, and there's always somebody standing by. So I want you to hear that. There's always somebody there to help. And also, if you're ever thinking or needing an emotional support or psychiatric service dog, that is something that I also certify for. And you can find out more at anxietysimplified.net. So thank you for joining us. And again, we honor all of our veterans and military service members that are currently serving. So thank you so much. Bye for now.